Hello, everyone. My name is Chip Lowe. I'm one of the co-pastors at the First Presbyterian Church of Yorktown, and I work with Susan on the Healthy Vital Congregations Initiative in our presbytery. And in partnership with Susan, I'd like to talk a little bit about what we are doing to follow up on some of the congregational assessment tool work, as well as supporting congregations and their pastors, so that we can not only think about who we are now and what's happening in us now, but how we can have the support and the space to continue to move forward in the work that we feel called to do. And in particular, that work that I am focusing on is around coaching. And so what I'd like to do today is spend just a few moments to explain to you what coaching is and how we are incorporating it into the work of the Presbytery as a resource and benefit for individuals and teams to have that space to discern what God is doing. So one of the ways that I like to think about answering that question is to go back to what I think is a really wonderful question that Jesus asked his disciples when there were all these people around, and there was some sense in some kind of big question of how are we going to feed them all. And so the disciples come to Jesus and say, "What are we going to do?" And Jesus turns it back on them and says, "Well, how many loaves have you?" And I think this is a wonderful moment in helping the disciples um, see a bigger world than they might have seen. And it didn't start by just pointing out what the answer was. Jesus asked a question, and it's a question that invites the disciples into a bigger world than the anxiety or of what they don't have or how they're going to solve this problem. And so when Jesus asked this question, "How many loaves have you?" I imagine that the disciples um, shrugged their shoulders because they just didn't know. They didn't know how to answer that question. And in many ways, this is what the gift of coaching invites us to think about. It invites us to see a bigger world, a bigger view than we often have. It's coaching invites us to think expansively about who we are and what we have and what we can do. And in this case, it would appear that the disciples may not have known an answer to this yet. They may have been very focused on a very specific situation and unable to see possibilities. And so when Jesus asked the question and they shrugged their shoulders, Jesus goes on to say to them, "Go and see." And if anything else, one of the real benefits, I think, to coaching is that it invites us not simply to have a bigger worldview and to see more than we often see, but to actually go and see and to practice having that bigger view of the world and what kinds of resources are around us. It is with this in mind that the definition of coaching is one in which we partner with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their God-given personal and professional potential. This is based on the International Coach Federation coaching definition, and I think it opens up possibilities for how we think theologically. Notice in this definition that in coaching, we are partnering with clients. The coach is not the one who has the answers. The coach is not the spiritual director. The coach is not the mentor. These are all important roles, but when it comes to coaching, it is a partnering with clients to create a space where there can be some thought-provoking and creative process together that does what is fundamental to our faith, which is to inspire us to maximize our personal and professional potential. And the word potential is important here because there is something that wants to be done. There are resources that we have around us, and oftentimes they live in a potential space because we're not tapping into them. We're not seeing the world as big enough, or the resources that we have internally and externally as real possibilities that we can tap into and do something with. So when we think about what coaching does, it starts with a fundamental question. Who do you need to be in order to do what you want to do? And I think this is a really important piece of what coaching is about. It doesn't just think in terms of tasks, it thinks in terms of alignment of who we are with what we need to do or want to do. And in that sense, in coaching, we are working on both who we are and what we do. It is not one or the other. Too much in one direction, like being, and we don't feel like we're getting anywhere or accomplishing anything. Too much in moving in tasks, and we stop asking, are we doing things that are in alignment with who we're called to be and who maybe we're called to be next? Coaching starts from a basic assumption. As we ask that important question, it starts from the assumption that clients are creative, resourceful, and whole. There is a creativity in us, a resourcefulness in us, a wholeness in us already. And we may grow those things through coaching, but we do not start from the place that a client, whether an individual or a team, is broken and needs to be fixed. We start from the place of where they are already creative, where they already have the assets of resourcefulness and wholeness, and we build on those things. And so we don't want our clients to think that the coach is coming in to fix them or to solve problems. We want to coach the person who has a sense of these three qualities already and how they enable and empower a person or a group to address the issues that are before them. In order to do that, we might ask what David White so wonderfully asks in his poem, What to Remember When Waking, that this question of what seed waits in the seed of you to grow and spread its branches against a future sky. I think one of the things that's really important in coaching is that it starts from where we are at this moment, and it helps us begin to listen to what is the future asking of us, and what is the future calling us into, and how do we align who we are and what we do with it so that the transitions we go through in the coaching time together help us live into the future we have with that creativity and resourcefulness and wholeness and the God-given personal and professional potential that we have. Now, the process that what coaching invites us to think about is instead of thinking that we are going to get from one place to another and it's a straight line, in coaching, we want to take seriously that in order for us to go through the growth and the transitions and the steps it takes to get to the goals we feel called to embody in our ministry, that we're going to go through on a path that's more often like that space, that second half of the picture, in which we're going to come across some obstacles and some challenges, and we're going to have to deal with the ups and downs of the journey itself. But when we do that, when we come across those different obstacles, they aren't things that get in the way. They are things that invite us to learn. They are things that invite us to learn about who we are, and what we can and can't see, like those disciples, and what it means rather than having one goal like the top picture, that all along the way we are learning about who we are and what we can do, and that there are multiple flags that are celebration points along the journey instead of just one. Because what we're going to be celebrating is not just getting something done, but who we are and how we're growing along the way in the midst of that. So if coaching in one sense is focused on this creativity, resourcefulness, and wholeness in the client, most of coaching begins and focuses first on the individual. Training itself is done around individuals and how we engage the coaching process with an individual. But what we want to do in the Presbytery is begin to open up coaching as a resource to help people think about how we can be groups of people together who discern what God is trying to say to us, and invite some discernment and growth in a group of people who then have the opportunity to help a larger group like the church grow into something new and next. And so, to that end, we don't want to just offer coaching that is for individuals. We also want to offer coaching that is for teams. What you see in this picture is the difference between team and group coaching. In group coaching, it is often thought that we put a topic on a table and there's a group of people, the circles that are around it, and as they together engage the topic, it sparks insights and awareness for the individuals. But notice that they take their insights and awarenesses in multiple directions. In group coaching, there is not necessarily a sense of a we, except in the time that we are together. And that's the beauty of group coaching. It is a space where we can learn from one another. Our ideas can be sparked. We can learn about who we are as we engage in relationship work with one another. But the ultimate end is that each of us takes our insights and awarenesses back into our various contexts. In team coaching, we began to see a very different way in which the individuals are moving both individually, but as a unit and as a team. And in that sense, team coaching allows for the individuals to continue to engage a particular focus, a particular purpose, but they do it as a part of a larger purpose. And so you'll see individual circles and individual arrows heading in the same direction towards the same star, but they're also inside of an arrow that speaks to how they are living out and discovering a shared purpose together. And so in team coaching, the International Coach Federation has broadened that initial definition to acknowledge that when we get a group of people together, there's going to be more relationship work, more reflective work together, but there's something that gets co-created as well. And so team coaching is about partnering in that co-creative and reflective process with a team and its dynamics and relationships in a way that inspires them to maximize their abilities and potential in order to reach their common purpose and shared goals. That's a lot of words, but if you break it down into its parts, notice that there's a co-creative and reflective process for a team. And notice that when the team is doing that co-creative and reflective process, there's going to be dynamics and relationship work that needs to happen so that the team begins to move from what may feel at first like a group to more something that is living into a we and a shared purpose, which is what you'll find as they do that work, that they begin to reach that common purpose, that those shared goals. What we say in team coaching is that the purpose creates the team. And sometimes it takes time for a team to understand what's its purpose for being together. And oftentimes that purpose is that it's for a larger and larger group. So we never just coach a team for the team's sake. The team is being set aside to do some discernment work that allows them to then live into and do to help out the larger ministry of the church. And in that, then they develop some shared goals that both allow them to learn together, to have relationships together, and ultimately to build something next and new, perhaps, that is sustainable, both for the work of the team, but ultimately for the work of the ministry of the church. Which is why when we talk about team coaching, it's an experience that allows a team to work towards sustainable results and ongoing development. The team's work is valuable first in itself, but it becomes valuable when the results of its work, its recommendations to the ministry of the church, become bigger than itself. Its work together becomes very valuable when there is an ongoing development, both for the members of the team, for the team together, and for how the bigger organization, the church in this case, can continue to do its to learn and grow and develop. There's something powerful that happens when a team gets together and does discernment together. It something that can't happen until the team does the work together, which is that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. We don't know what we don't know until we can get together and do some work together. But we also don't know what can be generated until the pieces of the team come together and live together in their work and their discernment and see what arises among them. There are wonderful opportunities to see next and new possibilities that just can't be seen when we only focus on the parts of our ministry or only on a few people or a few things. But when we invite people to set aside some focused time to listen to one another, to listen to the current situation of our ministry, to listen to how a congregational assessment tool is sharing with us and telling us some things about who we are and some priorities that could come out of the energy that we have for next ministry. There's something amazing that happens when all of that comes together and people begin to get a vision for who we can be next and what we can do next. And so in our team coaching work, we want to ask some important questions like, how well does the team collectively learn and adapt to new challenges and support the learning of its members? And what is this team learning together and individually that brings value to its stakeholders, and its more than human stakeholders? The goal of the team is never simply to just be a team. It is always to bring value and insight and awareness and recommendations and actions that the larger church can not only agree with, but ultimately we hope commit to, that will open up new paths and next paths of ministry. And so the way in which we want to support the Presbytery and its churches in the work that it does is we would like to offer the gift of coaching to the Presbytery in the forms of individual coaching, individual and team coaching around the congregational assessment tool. We'd like to offer coaching related to grants and coaching related to the pastoral salary support program. Because what we believe is that in all of these, it is not simply the task or doing something that is important, but to create a reflective space where we can take the results of the congregational assessment tool and listen to it more deeply than we might be organized to do. We're giving out money in our presbytery because people have wonderful ideas about where they can go next in ministry, but what's there to learn in the midst of that doing, that if we don't create some reflective space, we might miss out on the learnings that create and help us adapt to new situations in ministry. And the same is true for the pastoral salary support program. The coaching we want to do is around helping the church hear what's next in its ministry with its pastor, or what's the next thing that ministry is inviting the churches to think about, that this grant is going to give some space to hear it well. And certainly, we want to be coaching pastors so that they can lead well in their ministry with people, and hold a space for us not only to do things, but to reflect on them and to live in that loop of learning as we do, and doing the learning that we can, so that together it becomes an ongoing development of who we are and what we do together. Would love to be in touch with you about more about what coaching is and how it can be supportive of you, so that we are together building healthy and vital communities of faith, and continuing to support what that means for you individually and in your congregation. So please be in touch.